Hey everybody, Sean Bukowski here. I hope everybody's having a great 4th of July weekend. I know we are, with the exception of my dog, who does not like fireworks. Though he did okay. He did okay, but generally, they go on so long, too. I mean, I'm not anti-firework, but I mean, midnight should be like a cutoff, right? Anyway, this week we're looking at the history of property laws in the U.S. It was just something I thought was kind of interesting. Maybe it's only interesting to, law nerds, but with the 4th of July here, I thought it'd be kind of interesting to look back at sort of how property law developed in the U.S. And what the laws that developed back then, how they still influence law today. And so we looked through, pre-revolution, there were kind of two competing interests that started, and really those competing interests, as you'll see, compete or continue through to today, in that you had a lot of Americans, or young early Americans, pre-revolution Americans, who saw property ownership as a potential way to increase wealth, and the early founders saw it as a way to push west. But the flip side of that, of course, is that the British Crown wanted to make sure that their investments, any creditors that made an investment in the new land, would have their investment protected. So you had this really desire for people in the new land to own property, as well as the British Crown enacting a Debt Recovery Act, which really gave no protections to property owners at all for their property that they would purchase from creditors. So as a result, you had these kind of two competing interests: property ownership, people wanted to own it; debt creditors wanted to protect their interests, and those combined to sort of develop real property law. And that continued after the revolution. Post-revolution, this was seen as a state law development. Property law was left to the states, but again, you had this two competing interests. People wanted to own property. They saw it as a way to increase wealth, which I think many Americans still see today. But states also wanted to encourage investors and creditors to come and invest in their economy in these new states. I mean, it was a risky investment for some creditors to invest in real estate. So many states enacted a Debt Recovery Act that was frankly pretty similar to what the British Crown enacted. And that was sort of the initial basis of real property law in the U.S. From that point, kind of all real property law on a state level has developed. Now, it's developed through the court systems and some changes, obviously, in statutes in states, but it's still on the same sort of basis. Protect creditors. We've chipped away a little bit at that. You can now, most states have some sort of homestead exemption where it protects your homestead from creditors. But protect creditors while also protecting this sort of God-given right for Americans to own property. So those competing interests have continued through to today, and that's how real property law, I should say, has developed in the U.S. Hope that was sort of entertaining for this 4th of July. Hope you have a great rest of your weekend, and subscribe to our blog. Thanks.